Hey everyone, Michelle Alexandria here. We're coming at you with another interview. Today is with Austin Basis. You may not know his name, but you certainly recognize his face. He's been in numerous movies and television shows. He normally plays the geeky friend or the tech guy's sidekick in a lot of different shows. I got a chance to talk to him a few weeks ago, and it was kind of a thrill for me because many of you know I have weird obsessions, and last year, my obsession was a show called Life Unexpected on the CW network that aired a couple of years ago. It stars Britt Robertson, had Kerr Smith in it, Sherry Appleby, and it also stars Christoph Polaha, Austin Butler, who's in the Shannara Chronicles. Austin Basis is one of my favorite actors, and I actually, we talked for about 45 minutes, and I joked around with him at the fact that I'm trying to collect the entire Life Unexpected set because I'm obsessed with that show, and so far I've interviewed everyone from that show except two people, Austin Basis and Christoph. So it was really funny because afterwards he went to my Twitter to thank me for the interview, and we got into this whole discussion about how I'm trying to complete a set, my Life Unexpected set. So he actually tweeted out to Christoph that he has to talk to me so I could get my set complete, and Christoph responded. So it was a real funny little message string. Anyway, Austin Basis actually talked to me because he's on a new show, Hulu show called Casual, which is a romantic comedy / dramedy that airs on Hulu. It's actually weekly, which is kind of weird for a streaming network to do a weekly show. So we talked for about a good 45 minutes about everything from Life Unexpected. He was also in another CW show that I loved to pieces, which was Beauty and the Beast, and that show actually finished last year or 2 years ago. So he started in Beauty and the Beast, Life Unexpected, Casual, and he's been in a boatload of movies. So check out this interview. Again, I wish I could use video footage and clips from all of his TV and movie appearances, but I can't because YouTube would just flag everything. Even the Hulu clips that, again, I have rights to post, but, it is what it is. Check out this interview. It's really fun. And we talk about everything from the 3 shows I mentioned to his new web series that I'm going to provide a link to in the description below. And we talk a lot about the differences between acting for streaming services and major networks and filming for the web. It's a really in-depth interview. So check it out. It's fun. It's cool. Here's Austin Basis. Life Unexpected was one of my favorite shows when it was on, and you almost complete the set. I've interviewed everyone from that show except for the guy who plays Dave. and I also love your work in Beauty and the Beast. So before we talk about your oldest stuff, let's talk about your new stuff, which is Casual, which is currently airing on Hulu. Can you tell us a little bit about that show?
Yeah, Casual is a relationship romantic comedy, half hour, that revolves around a brother and a sister who have a codependent relationship and have struggled to have successful personal relationships in life. The sister is a therapist and a divorcee with a teenage daughter, and moves in with the brother, who is a kind of a tech wizard. He created the algorithm for an app, or a dating website that has evolved over the 3 seasons of the show. But basically, he made a lot of money off of a dating website that he designed, and so both of them. She's a therapist. He's a tech person, and so they're at the point where in season 3, the first 2 seasons they were living together, which was not helping either of their love lives, and so Val, who's the sister, moves out in season 3, and she starts kind of branching out and attempting to gain her independence, and in the process takes a storytelling class in which she meets my character and Chase Crawford's character and a bunch of other characters who are like new to her and, kind of, maybe a new outlet for, some of the frustrations she's had in her, like, very kind of closed off life.
Now, can you talk a little bit about Ethan and how his relationship is going to develop with these characters?
I guess I can't say too much other than the fact that he to a degree becomes Val's part-time drinking buddy, and that he kind of provides a crossroads later down the line in the season for Val to make some pretty big decisions in her life. And so, I guess that's all I could say.
So you come from the background of network television.
Yeah.
From an actor's perspective, is there any difference in working with network television? Is the CW. So working with the network television, with the television network as the CW compared to working with a streaming network like Hulu, is there any difference that you see?
Well, I think it all depends. My experience on two separate CBS and CW shows. Life Unexpected was a CBS TV Studios, CW production, and Beauty and the Beast was a CBS TV Studios, CW production. Two different shows, two different experiences. We shot it in two different cities. So every factor affects that. And you don't really necessarily get in contact with the network, but from my experience, like the CW is very much like a family, and they're very hands-on when it comes to just taking care of their talent. And so that was a great experience. But the process of filming the show on network TV and other shows that I've been on, it's a whole different model than what Hulu has developed. And I think to a degree Hulu took the cue from the other streaming networks. They're making some obviously strides, with The Handmaid's Tale and shows like Casual, because Casual is the best way to describe it is like if you ever have seen an independent film, romantic comedy that has kind of dramatic undertones. That's really what the show is, packed into a half hour. So you get the comedy of that you're expecting with this type of show, a half-hour show, but you also get these really poignant moments, and all through the lens of the independent filmmaker's eye. So Jason Reitman is an executive producer. He directed the first couple episodes of the pilot and the first couple episodes in the first season, and he's directed episodes in every season. He directs the final two episodes this season, and I think, part of his vision and Xander Lehman's vision have been to keep that tone and keep that essence of independence. Because I feel like when you say independent film or independence, there's a sense that it's not going to be cliche, that they're going to constantly make an effort to break out of the stereotype of a comedy, the stereotype of relationships, and kind of layer it to a level where it's both real, dramatic, and comedic at the same time. To the point where this whole season, if you look at the directors of every episode, one, most of them are women, and two, most of them have successful independent filmmaking careers. And so Lake Bell directed this past episode, my first two episodes. So they have a lot of the directors direct in pairs. So is Lake Bell, Jillian Robespierre, who directed Obvious Child, and I think she has a new film that's just premiered at Sundance. So these are the top independent filmmakers out there, and this type of atmosphere. Hulu and the executive producers at Casual and Helen Estabrook, they all kind of strive for that newness and that I think that kind of independent film perfection. Also, I should tell you that there's a kind of a mini Life Unexpected reunion because the showrunner of Casual is Liz Tigelaar, who created Life Unexpected.
Oh, well, I'm down for the show now. I actually started, and I actually had a weird moment with the guy who plays Jones.
Oh yeah.
And kind of last year because it was so unexpected. He was in MTV's show The Shannara Chronicles.
Yeah.
And I knew nothing about it. And I walked in and he sat there at the table and I was like, oh my God, it's Jones! So I had like this really scary fangirl moment there.
Yeah.
I was cool with Britt though. Because Britt I expected to see. But Jones was like out of the blue and I was like, oh my God, it's Jones! And I pretty much dominated the entire round table talking about Life Unexpected for like 20 minutes and everyone wanted to hit me.
He was so young when we did that. He was like, I think 17 or 18. Such a positive, great kid and talented actor. And he's also in Austin, so I can't,
I know. I was going to say he's your namesake. He came.
Yeah, I know. There were 3 Austins on the show. They were like, we were both, Austin first names, and then the roommate, Baze's and Matt's roommate, Jamie, is Reggie Austin.
Oh, Jamie Austin. Oh.
Reggie Austin. So yeah. So we were like, we used to call ourselves the Reggie Austin basis because we always hung out together. So.
Or the 3 Austins.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
So when I'm going to get back to the topic of women directors for a second. Which is, do you, as someone who works with a lot of directors, what is it like for you to work with a woman director, and do you think they bring something really different to the table, or do you think they bring something totally different to the table?
Yeah, there's automatically a different perspective, just based on their life experience that they bring to the table. That, I think, TV is so good now and it's changing so much, and they're part of the reason. Like, there's been women showrunners for years and women TV creators. When it comes down to directing the actual episodes, that's been a slower process. And I think percentage-wise, they always do the percentage of how many episodes of TV were directed, or the film industry is a way different beast. I can't really talk about that, but I think what to generalize it and to kind of say, all right, so women bring this and men bring this. I just think it's a different experience. Every director brings their different experience, and that there are plenty of great female directors, and some better than men. Some men are better than women. There's no bearing, and so it shouldn't really have a bearing on who gets hired and who does the job. In my experience, especially with this show, there was just a sensitivity to the emotional depth of each of the characters, and I think in just my experience with the few directors on this show that I've worked on, in Beauty and the Beast, there were several female directors, and Life Unexpected, of course, there were a lot of female directors, so there's an ease with which they can talk to actors, and about the levels of the different emotions that need to come across in a scene and the nuances that sometimes male directors that are great at filming shots and kind of setting up shots and creating a great piece of TV don't always have that ability to talk to actors, and that's I think a really overrated ability that independent filmmakers, and we're talking about women who are independent filmmakers, there's more dialogue, there's more, kind of naturalism and reality in a lot of those films that doesn't get a chance to be seen in TV because it's so fast paced. And so when you have a set of filmmakers, whether they're male or female, coming from the independent film world, going to TV in an environment that's run like an independent film set, like Casual is, then you have people that are already accustomed to that. I think vice versa, if you have like someone in the TV world that is just worried about getting the shot and getting it done, and in my experience, a lot of times doesn't necessarily talk to the actors. The actors do their jobs and the directors do their jobs, and sometimes never the twain shall meet. So that happens a lot more than you think. Yeah, sorry.
And I'm sorry to cut you off, but I would argue that TV right now, there's a whole renaissance going on with TV, and that it far surpasses film right now. Do you think that's one of the reasons why more diversity or diversity of voices, how the more slow give and take between the actors and the directors? Why do you think TV is just so good in the last few years?
Because there's multiple reasons. One, it's a lower budget, so there's lower financial risk for TV studios. There's also a bigger need to tell detailed stories because you have to tell it over the course of 10 to 20 episodes as opposed to 2 hours. So the details you get in a show, even a half-hour show like Casual, you're going to get more of a detailed perspective and story that's going to be, laid out over, in our case, 13 episodes. And than you will in a 2-hour movie, and with less financial risk for the company that's producing it. And so, add that into the mix, then people that are, kind of footing the bill are much more inclined to take those risks on and give freedom, like a lot of cable networks, and whether it's a premium cable network like an HBO, a Showtime, FX, some of the basic cable, USA, Hulu, Amazon, Netflix, they're working in a new template that they're creating based on the way TV was failing before. Like the way TV worked before, it was a grind. It was like get the episode done and get it out. There was not a big lag time between writing of the episodes and filming. So with like Life Unexpected, Beauty and the Beast, they only pay the writers a month and a half, 2 months before the first episode begins. So you figure maybe 4 or 5 episodes get completely written before you get to day one. A network like Hulu, a couple of writers on Beauty and the Beast write on, one writes on The Path and one writes on Handmaid's Tale. They were telling me that they were writing the season. They started writing the season 4 months before they were shooting. Like I saw them in like January or February of this past year, and they weren't starting shooting until May or June. It was crazy. I was like, so you're gonna write the whole season before you shoot the first episode? And like, yeah, so that when in episode 7 or 8 down the line, they realize something is connecting and they can adjust something earlier to make that arc live a little clearer and better or more detailed, they'll go back to episode 1 and adjust some beat or moment that works for what they're doing in episode 7 or 8. So it's amazing how it's working more like film in the sense that the script is already there, and now it's just up to the directors and actors to make that work. Whereas, in my experience, you get a script the night before you start shooting that episode. That happened several times on Beauty and the Beast. And there's no creativity. The creativity is in how you can make the best of the situation of learning those lines and those scenes as quickly as possible. There were a couple days where I had like 5 scenes the next day, and I got the script the night before, and I'm like staying up till all hours of the night, going in and telling everyone, I'm like, this is going to be a rough day, and everyone knows it. Everyone knows you get the script the last minute, and then you kind of wing it, and you get the best that you can in that circumstance. But
I think,
sorry.
No, I was going to say, and I think that's probably why cable and streaming services get so much better quality, because it seems like they just plan better, and we're still in the era of television where everything's like 22, 23 episodes of network television, or 22, 23 episodes stretched out over 9 months, and as a viewer, it feels like they're just flying by the seat of their pants. Why do you think network TV still hasn't gotten the memo that maybe if they kind of plan stuff out, I mean, even if they cancel the show at episode 8, it would be nice if, everything was planned out and written before the first episode was even shot.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's the thing, too. It's like, it's such a week-to-week life cycle on TV that, it's all about getting, advertising dollars and faces tuning in, in this cycle of, you put as much out there and the whole upfront process is pitching the new shows and, like you kind of trying to get people, these media buyers to buy ad space, ad time on the show that's about to come out that they really don't know what it's going to be like. So it's like really they take the risk based on the idea, the concept, the hope that the show would be good or who would be watching that show based on what they're trying to sell as media advertisers. And then you get to, you're saying 6, 8 episodes down, sometimes 2 episodes, and you're like, this is not landing. And that's like 5 or 6 months between the May pitch, I guess 5 months, and the September or October premiere of the show. Sometimes,
but it can't cost that much more to actually at least properly plan and have all your scripts ready.
Well, yes. Well, you have to pay writers. So you're basically taking the risk in network TV of saying, cable is already taking that risk, and streaming services. So the idea that they would pay them for 4 months of writing, 4 or 5 months of writing, before the show even aired, and they knew whether what they were writing and producing was successful or not. That, the budgets on network shows are definitely higher on an average basis, but like a show like, I just went to a Westworld, screening last night. We were trying to work out how much budget that show had because it's so cinematic and well made, and they shot on film, which cost an extra amount of money as opposed to digital. Like to actually buy the film, process the film, transfer, that's a whole another level of budget that most digital projects, most things are shot on digital, high def, cameras and it's all digital. So when you shoot on film, it's more money. Anyway, like you're talking about about $10 million per episode. which
the
is not
the
a,
math
yeah,
on the the math on those shows never made sense to me. Like you look at Game of Thrones, Westworld, like any of those premium channel shows, it's like
yeah.
they're spending a lot of money on that stuff. And you're like, wow.
Well, here's the thing with like, so Hulu, Amazon, Netflix. So Amazon, they have a surplus budget that they decided, and same thing with, Hulu and Netflix are more entertainment, mainly entertainment networks. So Amazon obviously has all this, it's like an online marketplace. So they have this yearly surplus budget that they were like, okay, so right now the way TV is going and just the possibilities that the amount they would spend on promotion, advertising, publicity, some of that I think in what I know of it gets put into this new department of original content. So let's say the millions of dollars that they would spend on some marketing campaign or ad campaign to promote some aspect of Amazon is spent on that stuff as opposed to spent on a kind of a 10 episode show like Transparent that people have to buy into Amazon. They have to get Amazon Prime to watch those shows. So when you buy Amazon Prime, then all of a sudden the rest of the marketplace opens up and you can get discounts on shipping and all this stuff. And you're like, oh, these ads come up for the other things. So as soon as you tune in and buy that Amazon Prime, you're spending money. And then they're getting free advertising in turn for all the rest of their products or the rest of the product on their site, so that they're going to make money from you watching the show and from possibly you buying things on Amazon. Everyone buys things on Amazon.
Right.
With HBO and Hulu, I think it's more cut and dry where it's like, okay, so we would spend this much on advertising and promotion of the network to get people to sign up and subscribe because they're paid premium subscription networks. Showtime is similar. But I think it's packaged in with HBO. But so they get a certain amount of dollars. They, like HBO, these two networks know exactly how much they're getting paid per month, and they know predictability wise how much more they would make or how much less. There was a whole thing with Sopranos years ago that the biggest spike in HBO subscriptions was, like that was the big thing with Sopranos. All these people bought HBO and signed up for HBO just to watch The Sopranos. So they're spending basically $10, $12 a month just to watch this one show.
And it's all about
yeah.
it's all about the word of mouth, getting them in the door, and then you say keep them at that point.
Yeah. So that's what I think. I think they have a certain budget that they would spend normally on, advertising. And what better advertising is there than to have an award-winning show that you could watch in Hulu's case every week? You don't have to just binge it once. You could watch it every week because it's they lay it out like the normal TV process, and watch that show and say, oh, Hulu's great. I want to, you get to watch these other shows. You get to watch these, old TV shows and movies and stuff, and
And let me just say, I am not a fan of that. I tune into Hulu and streaming services so I can binge watch. I don't want to watch casual every week. I want to just watch it on watch it.
Well, there's something to be said for the experience of that TV experience that you're not forcing. Here's the thing with Hulu. Once it's up, you can binge it. Like it's like you could binge it when the episode is the season finale. Binge it that day, and then if that's the TV experience you want, then you can get that. You can't really get that with network TV. Also, you're going to get the experience if you're watching it with, friends or people that and you check in every week, after you watch the episode, that's a fun part of the experience too. Like for me at least, when you can watch it all, then it's just like, it may help the viewing aspect of it, and there are certain things you may do as a creator of that show that is more complicated, because people are, like House of Cards, people are binge watching that. It premiered, I think, yesterday. People are binge watching that, so you could get a little more complicated with the plot structure, because people aren't going to forget, and go a whole week and say, oh wait, who was that? How did that happen? If people watch the 10 episodes or however many episodes all at once, it's all going to be clear like in a movie. You're not going to forget what happened in the first half hour. Whereas if you're doing week to week, over the course of 10, 13 weeks, you're like, wait, is that the guy from first episode? And then you have to go back and figure it out. I think there's a benefit to that, but I also think the idea of having that conversation around TV and how good TV is for a show like Casual and Handmaid's Tale, I mean, that's a prime example right now of something that every episode there's things to talk about. And so, you lose that when you have the whole season and you can't talk about the different kind of revelation points or like plot shift points in the season, like a Handmaid's Tale.
But anyway, I will say, I am getting more and more into and trying to get better about doing reviews on time and doing recaps. And it's like, what do you do when you binge watch an entire season or something? How do you recap that? You can't really. It seems sort of pointless to do weekly recaps if it's available for binging. So that's something I'm kind of currently struggling with. So I'm like, well, should I recap each and every episode or just write one review and call it a day? It's kind of weird.
Tough. Yeah, it's also like, when do you as journalists and reviewers, when do you get the go ahead to like spoil stuff? Because it's, usually the review of an episode either comes out right before it or right after it, depending on spoilers in normal TV time. But when a show like Bloodline releases over the weekend, and you're like,
I was having this exact conversation with someone from Penn State just last week when I was like, where I went to talk about stuff that happened in like episode 9 and 10. I'm like, wait, should we talk about that? I mean, it's out, but is it spoilers? It is kind of weird when you get into those kind of weeds.
Yeah.
So you know, and let me ask a couple of last questions because I'm going on and off, and I can talk to you all day. And I haven't even talked about Beauty and the Beast. But so you normally say the cool best friend. How would you say Ethan is different than the other characters that you played?
I feel the two bigger, obviously the two big, like playing JT and Beauty and the Beast and Matt and Life Unexpected. They are not as relaxed of a character as me in real life. Like, so as Austin, like stepping into the shoes of those two characters, I have to, kind of raise the anxiety levels up in my own, performance, because obviously JT's life was always on the line. He's stressed out all the time. He's, kind of a mad genius in a way. I always thought of him as like a mad scientist, like first season, and second season too is like trying to create that world in which he's never in control of the moment, but he's like juggling so many things that he didn't have time to shave or comb his hair, like, or maybe even shower. It's like he was.
I'm not going to say it was the stereotypical geekiness, but
yes, right. And there was an aspect of him that I think was uncomfortable with, not used to human contact outside of his relationship with Vincent. In the same way that Matt even though he was a teacher, he was comfortable as a teacher with the teacher-student relationship, and his relationship with Baze and Jamie. But when it came to, talking to Kate and, like women in general, girls in general, that there was like a block and a kind of a complex that he had. And he always was dramatic. Everything was like kind of always life or death. And the same thing literally with JT. With Ethan, there's an ease that, makes him feel more like who I am, or who I was at one point in my life, where he's got his kind of, position in life, and he doesn't love his situation. Hence he's taking a storytelling class, but there's a sense of ease, whether it's a defense of, stuff going on underneath, or that he's really that laid back and could kind of, he's also an advice giver like JT and Matt were. Like he is that type of person that could see other people's problems and solve them and see them very clearly and simply. But when it comes to his own stuff, it's a little more complicated and muddled. But he doesn't stress out over it. He's very like extremely laid back. And yeah, like every one of those characters, every one of the characters is searching, for, a love and, kind of out there in playing the field, as it were. But I think Ethan has been the least successful. Even though he's easier to talk to than most all of those other characters. Like, even Matt hooked up by the end of the series.
But somehow you have Jamie, and you always end up with the hot girl in the end. Why is that?
There's also a thing with Ethan that is a male doppelganger of Valerie in Casual, where I think she sees a lot of herself in him, in a sense that he's very sarcastic, similar to JT, but for coming from a place of, if you watch Casual, Valerie makes a lot of self-deprecating and awkward jokes that sometimes land, sometimes they don't. I think Ethan is very much the same way, where it's coming out of a lot of his joke is come out of a place of darkness, and loneliness, but there's an ease with which it comes out of that, I think is what is, what Valerie will ultimately see is like, there's kind of like the difference is he's more laid back and accepting of his lot, and she's always kind of like, reaching around and trying to figure things out, even though they're both having kind of like depressing existences in a way. He's much more accepting and, lighthearted about it. On the surface, she is not, and, kind of stresses out and freaks out about every little thing, whereas he kind of lets it roll off his shoulder.
Okay. Well, wow, we're already at 40 minutes, so I'm going to have to wrap this up.
Whoa. I talk a lot.
So my final question is, and if I ever see you at Comic-Con, and I go fangirl, it was just because I don't expect to see you. If I expect to see you, then I'm always cool.
Yeah, right. Good.
But it's the unexpected appearances that always throw me off guard. Off kilter.
Yes.
But so what's next for you?
Well, today I been working on just a little fun web series with my writing partners. I've been for the past 2 years, since like season 3, the end of season 3 of Beauty and the Beast, been producing and developing several TV story ideas with a couple of my writing partners that I did improv and sketch comedy with in New York. So they kind of lean towards the comedic, since I've been doing so much dramatic stuff in the past couple of years. So we've been writing all these things. We kind of developed 2 separate, solid pitch concepts where we have a Bible, we have our story arcs for first season, character breakdowns, we have, kind of this whole package for 2 separate, projects that haven't seen the light of day because we're pitching it behind the scenes. And so, with that in mind, we were like, let's do something, this is within a couple of months, since February we've done this, where we're like, okay, let's film something, let's put it up there, put it together, and put it out there. Just to start, putting our brand out there, what our comedy and where our voice is going to be. And so the first episode is called Not Your Buddy. The basic premise is it's me playing myself, playing Austin basis, having been having a show canceled and not working, being unemployed, and all my friends and my wife have kicked me out. Now I'm living on my own, trying to make it back into the heart of Hollywood. And to pay rent, I've taken a cartoon roommate into my apartment that is also an actor. So it's kind of live action animated web series where he's kind of a brash, vulgar, hand drawn cartoon from the early part of cinema, like the Steamboat Willie early Disney days. That has never quite made it in Hollywood. He's had a lot of hope when he was a young up and comer in the animated world, and we just thought it was a fun concept to play with a cartoon character that never quite made it to Disney, Pixar, Nickelodeon levels of stardom, where he has always missed out on roles. Like, he actually auditions for roles that, Mickey Mouse and, Simba and, all these characters that he's possibly auditioned for. He just missed out on being the Lion King.
And you know who that's perfect for? Hulu.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. A lot of these, this alternative, content is, there's so many openings, and also it doesn't necessarily have to be a 25-minute episode. The hour ones, even, a show like Handmaid's Tale or The Path on Hulu, they sometimes an episode's 42 minutes, which is what its standard, usually is on network. Sometimes it's 50 minutes or 55 minutes. We just watched an hour and 5-minute episode of Bloodline. There's no rules when there's no commercial. I guess Hulu has commercials, but when there's no structure like there is on network television. So we just created this thing. It's me and him. We don't get along, and he's very vulgar, so it's kind of explicit content. It's my kind of bad boy, immature self coming out after all these CW shows and network television where you can't curse and you can't do things that you do in real life. So it's just a fun show, and we had fun doing it, and hopefully people get a kick out of the concept, and
what's the name of your URL? I'll make sure I add it to the article.
What's
the name?
The show is called Not Your Buddy.
Okay, and what's the website?
It's on YouTube. It's Not Your Buddy on YouTube. Not Your Buddy. That's the page.
Okay, I'll make sure I add it to the article. And thanks again. This was awesome. Now I have to hunt for days and he'll complete my
I just talked to him
unexpected set.
yesterday. He's filming something. He's filming something in Toronto now, so you should connect with him. I think he's working on a new project. I don't know how much I can say about it, but
but tell him to call me. I need to complete my set.
Right.
You're on like action figures,
right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, anyway, this is awesome. Thank you again.
Okay.
And
thank you. It was a pleasure talking to you.
And I'll post this in a couple of days, and I'll send you a tweet when it goes live and all that fun stuff.
Great. Thank you.
So, thank you.
Have a good day. Bye.